So let's talk about resume writing and JSON best practices. So we want to look at the different types of resumes and the JSON requirements and recommendations for the resume sections. So be aware that the book and the LinkedIn Learning course differ in the resume advice. If you have questions that you see on the test, you're going to be asked about what we discussed in lecture, not the book. So, why do you have a resume? Well, it is not to get a job. It is to demonstrate your qualifications for the job, get an interview, and market yourself. So you get the job with that final interview and by having demonstrated those qualifications and shown that out of all the candidates, you're the best fit. So think about the resume assignment itself. You're going to be submitting to an artificial intelligence applicant tracking system, basically, and you're going to see the feedback that you would not see when you submit to a large company. So often you won't even hear back from those companies. You get ghosted. And think about how we review resumes and how you get ready. You're going to be getting ready for an interview, also with that AI. Now, it's a sad fact that the person who gets hired is not necessarily the person who can do the job best, but the person who knows how to get hired. As they also say, it is a job to get a job. And it's an unpaid job because you only get paid once you get it. So coming in second doesn't really help you unless there are two jobs there. So remember, you're getting a job, not, overall with your resume and interview process. You want to get that job and you want to think not how you want to be perceived in the world, but how you want the employer to perceive you as an employee and an asset. That's not the same as being an influencer who markets him or herself as attractive. You want to be seen under the auspices of that company. How do you fit in with them? That may mean that while you're your authentic self, you're the authentic self that would show up to work, not the self that comes out on the weekends. So ask yourself, what does the employer need? What can I offer? And how can I communicate that? So there's a book called The Potato Chip Difference by Goodman in 2001. And essentially, the argument is there are lots of different types of potato chips, just as there's also an interesting argument about ragu as a tomato spaghetti sauce. And now we're aware that there are lots of different varieties of potato chips, lots of different varieties of ragu, and people feel passionately about the type that they pick. You want someone to feel passionately about you when they pick you. That's why people select someone that they hire. So ask yourself, situationally, what do employers want? If I am the product, how do I fit into that market? So how do you do that? If you're marketing yourself, you analyze employers and job ads. You search the company profiles, you look for keywords in the online job descriptions, you look at the people who currently work for the company and you talk to them. That's your situational analysis. What is the situation? Then we look at the strategic positioning. How can I tailor my documents and, in effect, for an interview myself, to get what I want and what they say they want? So how do you position yourself? Don't start. Just get an idea of what they're looking for and connect with people. Talk to them about their interviews for that job. Think about how that all went. And then create a marketing strategy for yourself. This might be 2 or 3 years of strategy to get yourself in the position that you want. You look at organizations that will develop your skill sets. You look at all sorts of different ways that you can be attractive to that employer, and you can have multiple offers. You don't just want one offer, you want multiple offers. So think about, just like Richard N. Bowles says in What Color Is Your Parachute, how jobs are filled in your industry to determine how you should market yourself. So be practical. Many jobs are filled by networking as you get to the higher levels. Most entry-level jobs are filled at this point through that AI ATS system where they screen and they have gatekeepers, and once you come in and get that entry-level job, you start to make lateral moves in that role. So how does that employer fill a vacancy? Well, particularly as we move up in the company, the number one way people fill vacancies is from within, by promotion, because those people understand the systems and processes, and it takes nothing to promote them other than a raise. What's another way? Work samples, using proof. So having a portfolio that shows your skills, having accomplished certain things. So that's one of the reasons why you want to think about how each job or work that you do builds on your skill set. Then part of a network. People want to hire people that are like those who are currently functioning well. So build a network of close and loose connections of people that you respect, people who do good work. And they should be able to recommend you, and you should be able to recommend them. Now, ditch people and do not recommend people who don't do good work, right? That doesn't mean you're mean to them, but you certainly don't pass their resume on or their name on, right? You'd love to help them, but you can't. You cannot risk your reputation by recommending somebody who's going to do a poor job in your organization or a friend's organization. That sacrifices your own reputation for nothing. Then there's a trusted agency. Many of you will be contacted by recruiters and search firms. Be aware that some of these are scams, but some of them are real. Now, they should never charge you money for doing this. They get money from the company by recruiting someone. Sometimes we call them, at the higher level, they're headhunters, right? When they match CEOs and, people in the C-suite with their roles. Sometimes they can make $40,000 to $80,000, these recruiters, for placing somebody in a regular, high-ranking senior manager role. Because it's hard to get the right person, and it saves the company time to get the right person. So they'd rather pay for that than have a job ad. And so that final area is the job ad. Resumes that are in response to an ad. That is how entry-level people get in, typically. Entry-level or the first 5 years or so, job ads. So I would recommend that if you have not done this already, go to an online job site, search for positions in your field, and this could even be Google, and look at those key job duties and position requirements. Look at internships that you might want in the next year or two. You can search internship. See what comes up. Now, this will change day to day, week to week. Right now, there may not be a lot. In 3 or 4 or 5 months, in 7 months, there may be a lot of positions in that role. But look at the full-time roles. Look at what you want to do in 5 or 10 or 15 years. And include what you find in your portfolio when you write your reflections. So this should be part of the introduction to your section where you talk about your resume and you talk about your interview. So what would I recommend that you also do? Ask someone who has a job that you think is awesome how they found that job. So call or text them. You can include this in your portfolio. Say, hey, how did this work? If your family member knows them and you don't have their connection, say, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so? I just want to ask them a few quick questions. Always make your ask an easy yes, right? Then write about the interaction. What did they say? What advice did they give you? Ask them for 5 or 10 minutes of their time, and then listen. Think about, how did they get their job? What did they recommend you do? Really listen and write this down. And then ask a few more people. So make sure you include this in your portfolio. And to round this out, what is your favorite chip? Look at all these chips. See how different they are? You do not want to be a generic chip. This is why I always tell students, don't just be a business administration major with no focus, no concentration. Students tend to think that being generic will give them more opportunities. In effect, it gives them less because no one feels passionately about them, right? No one is willing to make them a higher offer or fight to get them on the team. And if 250 people are ready to do a position, then they're going to pick the person who seems like the best fit, who's most prepared, who has all this stuff, rather than the generic choice. So, think about how you can position yourself in that market and be the favorite chip. Once again, know what the target audience wants. So, what else do we think about for a new position? We think about the points of parity, how you are the same as everyone else applying, and the points of difference. How are you unique? Now, right now, you are in a class with a lot of other students who did very well in high school. And know that those differentiators, those things that you did very well, those are going to change over time because you've had some amazing experiences. You've traveled, you've been leaders in different ways. Now that's slimmed down. In high school, there was a wider variety of people. Already the differentiators have changed. So those will change even more in the future. So once you're in a group like with the Davidson Management Honors Program, everyone there got good grades. Everyone was a leader. So your differentiators from them, if you go in with a group of them for interviews or whatnot, they're going to be different. So how can you stand out? Well, right now, intern. Work in agile development. Look for mentorship, someone who can really help you understand how business functions. Win a business idea competition or at least participate. Develop a new product, or some of you can even manage an investment portfolio as part of your education. Think about what's your unique and that builds on your base qualifications. Now, this may not play into the resume you have right now, but this is your plan for the future and it's your dream resume. And think about how you can make your unique attributes more relevant so that people use those skills and let you build on them. So as far as impression management, remember I told you that you want to bring your authentic self to a job, but not necessarily your authentic self from the weekend. Think about the difference between what you post on Instagram and what you look like most of the time. The same rule goes for a job, except maybe what you post on Instagram isn't the person you necessarily bring all in on the job. So that person may need to be a little bit different to better fit that company. And most of the fit is not going to be that big. Some of it's just cosmetic, sometimes literally. So is impression management a field? Well, if you're interested in understanding how we've looked at this in terms of academia, yes. In 1959, Irving Goffman said that people not only try to convince others to see them as respectable and trustful individuals, but they also want to maintain an established desired positive image. So in the workforce, there is a constant move towards managing your first impression. You are in the beginning of that process. Now, it has become more intense over time and more all-consuming because you can't just be a very different person at home or online because of things like LinkedIn and Facebook and our increasingly interconnected lives. So you are going to have to think about how you straddle those domains, how you code switch, how you present yourself. You can do it. But we're in, from 2020 and beyond, managing self-presentation in online communities is an integral part of private and professional life. Think about how these intersect and how you want to manage them. So what's the positives of impression management? You can make decisions to steer people's impressions in a positive way online. So we have you looking at your LinkedIn profile and understanding that you can make choices about who you connect with, what word choice you use, how you take pictures, how you headline yourself, what you put out there that changes people's impression and that literally gets read by algorithms in different ways. You can also improve others' impressions offline, and that's the next step. You can have the best impression management online in the world, but if you can't improve people's impressions offline, you're in trouble. So what are our resume rules? You want to make sure that you understand that people glance at your resume for about 6 seconds. So if you have things that aren't relevant, take them out, right? Or think about what that recruiter and HR person want to see and include the data that they care. Keep it current. You always update your resume at least once every 6 months, usually more frequently, and that means a full review. And you update it before every position. So if you apply for a position, you look over your resume and you edit and target that resume to that job. So grab the job ad, look at your job ad and your resume side by side and start making decisions. Have a resume explicitly for that job ad or that field. And you want a resume that's visually appealing with readable font, good font size, bullet points. only one page, never more than one page, unless you've had, 20 or 30 years in the industry. And then think about your margins. You're not going to fill every bit of space. Why? Because people don't read every bit of space. You are going to need to be succinct and clear and know what they care about. So we have a technical resume template, and you are expected to use it. You want to have 3 to 5 bullet points per position. Bullets don't travel alone, so never a singular bullet. Begin each bullet with an action verb. Include results and metrics whenever possible. Put everything in reverse chronological order in each section. So that means the most recent thing happens first in the section. It's the first thing I see, and then we go back in time. And you can leave things off as long as there's not a huge gap in your timeline. Now, with the pandemic, a gap is more expected. So, and plus you're a student. So you have some excuses. That's one of the reasons why currently your education is at the top, because it excuses a lot of things. It explains exactly what you're doing now and why you think you'll be good in a position. You want to be consistent in formatting and phrasing, so copy that formatting. If something doesn't look consistent, you want to make sure it looks consistent. So sometimes when you edit, you lose formatting, go back and fix that. And proofread for spelling and grammar. So what types of experience count? All sorts. Paid and unpaid positions, internships, study abroad fellowships, university programs, community and volunteer experiences, leadership in clubs and organizations, athletics and student organizations, the military, academic projects, and competitions. All of these things count. All of these are important. So write compelling bullet points. Each one should be detailed, relevant, targeted, and memorable. Focus on your contributions and measurable achievements, and always answer the following questions. What did you do? Why did you do it? What was the problem that you were solving? And what were your results? And those should be specific and detailed and have numbers if possible, or specific words that show like what programming language you used to fix the problem. All right, and you may hear a airplane in the background. I'm sorry. So ethics in resumes. The most common lies on resumes are hidden employment gaps, fake college degrees, embellished experience, and language proficiency that people claim they have that they don't. Don't lie. At any point, you can be fired. And in some cases, as I've seen recently, there was a case in the UK where they reclaimed over $100,000 from someone they hired who had done the job well but had lied on their resume. So they reclaimed that money in salary and training. You want to be careful about that. You're not going to be hired again if you do this sort of thing, and it ruins both your network and your possibilities in the future. Don't do it. So what are the types of resumes? Functional, reverse chronological, combination, targeted, and scannable. So what we have is a combination resume that can be targeted, that is easily scannable. So it should be able to go into a company's database and be read by the artificial intelligence in the ATS system, their applicant tracking system. So a functional resume, just so that you know, downplays chronology, and it's usually used by job seekers with gaps in their work history, right? It is skill focused. So if you want to change jobs, if you have had a wide variety of jobs, you might have more of a functional resume. We have a mixture because as students, you really want a mixture to show that you've worked so that they look at that, they care about that. Reverse chronological means you put the most recent thing first, the most recent thing you've done in every section first. You list that work experience from newest to oldest, so reverse chronological, versus starting with your oldest experience, like I was born, and then going to newest. And remember, you'll leave things off like I was born. You emphasize your work history. So if you don't have gaps, emphasize that work history and show your skill growth. Really make sure that the bullets and the promotions show how you've taken on higher roles. The combination is a wonderful choice, and that's why we have that as our template. It targets employer needs and highlights your skills, and it shows your work ethic at the same time. So the sections do both. And you can move those sections around based on where you think they fit best. So a targeted resume is what I recommend you have for every single job that you apply for. Spend the time to think about why you'd be good in the job, and having that targeted resume prepares you for the interview because you've already thought about the job itself, the job ad, and why you'd be a good fit. So focus on a specific job opening. That does not mean that you have an objective. You don't need an objective. Once you've supplied the resume and your cover letter, they know you want the job. And it's organized to highlight compatibility. Match your phrasing to the job ad and sections so that if you go into their applicant tracking system, their AI, their artificial intelligence will immediately spot that you are compatible with this job. And the people who are reading it will spot that. So scannable resumes are simple in design. You don't want lines, symbols, or graphics, vertical elements, columns, underlining, tables. Many people like to use tables that are kind of invisible to organize their resume because they think it looks cool. Well, the problem there is that sometimes when it goes into an applicant tracking system, the columns get misread and your resume just looks like gumbledygook. And they don't tell you that it looks bad. You just don't get considered for the job. So use bolded, larger font headings. We have ours capitalized to distinguish between the heading text and the regular text. And make sure your dates are horizontal on one line and not on two or more lines. So our sections typically include these sections in the CMC template. Here are the common resume errors. It's not in JSON format. There are design issues. So look at all of these. Make sure your dates and bullets are aligned. Your headings are consistent. Experience is a word that AIs really love right now. So we have changed our resume to have experience on a lot of these sections. That's because it just makes you rank higher. We're just playing with the algorithm, guys. Length issues. Students love to go over one page. Don't go over one page. Figure out how to make your experience fit on one page. And sometimes that means changing the formatting, getting rid of extra spacing or rephrasing to be more concise. Customize your LinkedIn link. Make sure your bullet statements are good. Have metrics. Be consistent. Use action verbs instead of using words like I or me or you. You never use those. And try not to have too few or too many bullets. Aim for 3 to 5 per position. Never have one bullet. You want those quantifiable results and detailed descriptions. Vary your action verbs, so don't have the same action verb appearing twice. Do not use personal pronouns. Remember I said no I or me or you on your resume. No first or second person pronouns. Just use the action verbs. Do not have an objective statement. Do not list your references. And proofread. So in review, what are the different types of resumes? You now know a lot of different types. And what do we expect? We expect you to be very careful to have a template resume that meets all the expectations, but anytime you apply for a job, we expect that resume to be targeted for the job. And that may mean that you are editing every single time for an hour or more as you think about the job. Well, isn't a great job worth that? It also prepares you for the interview.